Hey everyone, Mark Brown here with 11 Aviation. I've got over 8,000 hours flying Kodiaks the last decade plus. And today I thought I'd make a video about the Kodiak 100 Series 3. Behind me you'll see this gorgeous Kodiak 100 Series 3. This is a 2022 edition. The Series 3 is the latest and greatest from the manufacturer. So to this day, we're here in July of 2024. Kodiak is still producing the Kodiak 100 Series 3. The Series 3 came out in 2021. It's still being made today, although there has been some minor tweaks and changes along the way. And so today I want to walk you guys through what is the Kodiak 100 Series 3, what to look for, and just educate you guys a little bit more about the product. So before I get into the specifics on the Kodiak 100 Series 3, let's sort of back up and go back to the start of the Kodiak product line. So we all know the Kodiak started in the early 2000s. It was sort of the brainchild between Tom Hamilton and Dave Vogtman. And the very first Kodiak that came off the line was in 2007. And 2008 was when customer deliveries started. So from 2008 through essentially the end of 2014 is what's called the legacy Kodiak 100 line. Early Kodiaks, the reason they're called legacies is there's really no conformity amongst that group of Kodiaks because they're all sort of different, sort of depending on what year they were produced, etc. And so with the legacies, you sort of have to get pretty granular, look at the serialized equipment list, etc., to really figure out what those airplanes have on them. And of course now here in 2024, a lot of those have been updated, so you got to get into logbooks, etc. The very first block change that came out is when we rolled out the Kodiak 100 Series 1 in 2015. And as I already mentioned, we've made a video about the specifics of the Series 1 linked down below. And then the Series 2 came out in 2018. Again, more specifics, check out the Series 2 video linked below. And then the Series 3, which you see behind me, came out in 2021, and it's still being produced as the Kodiak 100 Series 3 today here in July of 2024. All right, so let's walk over to this 2022 Kodiak 100 Series 3. And the first thing you'll notice is the weather radar pod looks a little bit different from the other Kodiak. So one of the big changes between Series 3 and Series 2 was the addition of the new weather radar pod, as well as the GWX-75 weather radar. And so as a lot of you might know, the GWX-75, there's a 10-inch dish in here. It's an all-digital, 4-color weather radar, but the GWX-75 came on the Series 3 edition of the Kodiak 100. So another thing that was added for Series 3 was the manufacturer decided that they were going to make these totally float ready. And one of the things that was part of the float package prior to Series 3 was the skin gap sealant. So as we all know, salt water is really bad for airplanes. And if salt water gets in between these cracks, it can make sort of cause hidden corrosion. And so every Kodiak, every Series 3 Kodiak 100 came with the Filant Gap sealant, which essentially is just a sealant between all these skin overlays. And so it's a lot less likely for any salt water or anything to get in there. Of course, the Kodiak already has sort of the most robust corrosion protection amongst any airplane in its category and class. And this just adds sort of a fifth step of corrosion protection, and that became standard with Series 3 on every airplane. Another thing that came out with Series 3 was the high quality paint. So throughout the Kodiak's history, the initial customers for the Kodiak product line was of course the humanitarian fields, and paint wasn't a high priority for them. It was more just about having a nice paint job, but they didn't want to spend a lot of extra money on paint because it was all about the mission that the airplane was doing and not necessarily about the cosmetics. But as the clientele for the Kodiak line changed over the years, the quality of paint became a much bigger deal to their customers. And so throughout the Series 2 line, they experimented with having an option for high quality paint or sort of a standard paint. But with Series 3, they went to a sort of a standard high quality paint that came with a 3-year warranty. And it essentially was base clear paint, so everything has clear coat over the top, and you can kind of know that if you run your hands over the line transitions. If your fingernail catches something, versus having it be smooth. That's sort of one of the easy ways to tell if it has the base clear on it or not. So most of the Series 3s, unless the customer specifically didn't want it, have the high quality paint. And the other thing is it has no orange peel. It's like a mirror, and it's just a really, really high quality paint job. Now, of course, the Kodiak line actually has an in-house paint shop now that they opened in 2023, and they're doing really, really good work out of that paint shop as well. So a lot of these, like this particular airplane was painted at Elliott. Duncan Aviation did a lot of paint. Corrigan down in Texas did a lot of paint work, out-of-house paint work for the Kodiak line. So sort of depending on where it got painted, you can sort of tell if it was the high quality paint or not. But that was a big change with Series 3, is really making sure that the paint coming off the line was really up to the customer expectations. So we've already talked about the skin gap sealant, which made the airplane float ready. Another addition when Series 3 was launched was the 4-bladed prop became standard as a pitch latch propeller. For those of you that might not know what the pitch latch is, the pitch latch essentially is a propeller. The PT6 normally shuts down like this, which is called feather. The pitch latch allows you to shut it down on the latches or in beta. And so specifically for float plane operations, that allows you to start up without the thrust of going from feather to normal pitch. So that made the airplane float ready. Additionally, there were some slight tweaks with Series 3. So the manufacturer in 2023 debuted this optional composite 5-bladed propeller. It's not for everybody, so depending on your missions, the 4-blade might be still better, or the 5-blade might be better. Again, they're both great props. It just really depends on the mission that you have for the airplane. So this actually became an option on the line in 2023. This particular customer has actually done the upgrade, but he's kept the 4-blade depending on the mission he uses this airplane for. But that's sort of a unique thing in that they changed the prop and did not rename it to a Series 4 or anything. So that's one of the changes that you'll see between year models within the Series 3. Another thing that came out with Series 3 was the manufacturer decided to package a lot of things together. And so even though these were options prior to Series 3, what came out is called the Executive Edition package. And so with Series 3 starting in 2021, if you got the Executive Edition package, a lot of the things that used to be optional became more standard equipment on the plane. So a couple things that became standard equipment outside of the Executive Edition package. So every Series 3 that comes off the line has these options unless it was requested by a customer specifically to not have these options. But a couple things that became standard are the large low pressure tires, the 29-inch tires, air conditioning, the 10-place oxygen. Those all became standard equipment on the Series 3 line. And then with the Executive Edition package, that was sort of the package that the manufacturer decided most people got that anyway, and so it just became a one check mark option if you were buying a new airplane. And that came with the TKS, the cargo pod, the TKS tank in the pod. And then in 2023, the Executive Edition package was also added to include the single point refueling option. So you'll see on the market that a lot of the Series 3s that are out there have the single point versus there's not too many Series 1s or Series 2s that have the single point unless they were added by the customer after they already own the airplane. In 2023, the single point started to be added on the line, and so that became a much more prevalent option. So you're a lot likely to see more Series 3s 2023 and newer that have that single point option. Something else that came out around the time frame of Series 3 in 2021 was the manufacturer update to the POH that got rid of the zero fuel weight. Technically didn't get rid of it, but it made the zero fuel weight so close to the max takeoff weight that it was essentially 30 minutes of fuel, which you need to take off in VFR conditions anyway. So for the lack of complexity, we just simply say that there is no zero fuel weight on the Kodiak 100 anymore. So that's another nice thing if you're looking at the pre-owned market about buying an aircraft, even if it's pre-owned, that's still manufactured today, is that you get some of the benefit of what they're doing at the manufacturing level on your pre-owned product. And so a good example of that is the zero fuel weight. That zero fuel weight was retroactive, so all you had to do was buy that POH update from the manufacturer, and all of a sudden your airplane got a lot more useful because your zero fuel weight went away, and you can now do a better combination of fuel versus payload. Boy, one thing I just love about this is a custom paint job, but one thing I just love about this is these screen printed decals. It makes what sort of can be a really ugly decal look pretty cool. That's neat. All right, so here we have the inside of the Kodiak 100 Series 3. So this is a 2022. A couple unique things about the Series 3. Obviously, we talked about the Executive Edition package. The Summit interior is part of that, which is the Summit is the high-end executive seating. The Timberline interior was still available, which is the forward-facing seats. The Tundra interior, for all intents and purposes, went away when Series 3 was rolled out. It became special order only and quite a long lead time. And for those of you that might not know, the Tundra, which we've done a video about, linked below, is sort of the commuter style, more airline style seats without the refinement, cup holders, carpet, things like that. But this particular airplane has the Summit interior. Another thing that became standard, which is little, but it actually from an engineering standpoint took a little bit of effort, is the Kodiaks in 2022 started being delivered with the cargo net. So that was standard equipment. So if you're looking at buying a pre-owned airplane, the cargo net, if it's 2022 or newer, should be with the loose equipment of the airplane. Prior to that, if any airplane had the cargo net, the first owner or second owner had to buy that cargo net separately. Why don't you guys come with me and we'll talk a little bit more about the interior of this airplane in the Series 3. One thing that's unique about the Kodiak 100 Series 3s is there's actually two different Summit interiors. So the Series 3 was launched in 2021, and then in mid 2022, the Summit interior actually changed to be called the Summit Plus interior. So the difference is mostly the seats. So the seats in this particular 2022 Kodiak 100 Series 3 are the original Summit seats. So this is just what the manufacturer calls the original Summit, or the Summit without the Plus. And these are fantastic seats. The big difference in these seats is these are a lot more plush. They recline quite far. They have a big armrest on one side. And they also have this quick disconnect where you can move them back and forth just by pulling up on this lever. What makes these seats different from the Summit Plus seats is these seats, I would not classify these as necessarily quick releasing seats. They do come out pretty easily. You have to have sort of a special tool to get them out, but they're not seats that you're going to be taking in and out quickly and on a regular basis. So here we are outside the Kodiak 100, and I brought a Summit Plus seat out to specifically speak about the differences between this seat and the Summit interior we just saw in the other Series 3 airplane. So real quick history lesson, the Kodiak 100 has had a lot of interiors throughout its history, but for the sake of this video, we'll just talk about the three that have been available on Series 3. We've had the Timberline interior, that's the commuter style interior. All those seats are forward facing. Those seats are not allowed to be turned around into a club configuration. They're the lightest weight seats. They can fold up like a pancake. I've really only seen those specced for customers that want to fit a lot of people, or maybe a fleet operator or government operator. That's more of the real versatile interior. Then the Summit we just talked about is the plushest, the nicest, the most executive. And since 2023, this is the Summit Plus seat. So the sidewalls, the headliner, the floor between the Summit, regular Summit, and the Summit Plus are the same. So we'll talk about specifically the seat. So this here is the Summit Plus seat. And what makes this one different is it sort of fits between the Summit and the Timberline seat. And by that I mean the drawbacks of this seat compared to the regular Summit is this one isn't quite as plush and it doesn't recline quite as far. But the really nice thing about this seat, and for the first time ever in a Kodiak 100, you get two dual armrests, you get a recline function, although not quite as much as the regular Summit. You have the car style seatbelt with the retractable shoulder harness. And probably the most important thing that I like the most is this seat can be fitted both forward and aft facing. So some of the other interiors we've spoken about, the Summit, those have to stay club, those are directional seats. The Timberline have to stay forward facing, those are directional seats. This seat is crash tested to go both fore and aft. So if I wanted to put this seat in, I could put it in right here in either the forward facing configuration or the aft. One of the other things I really like about this Summit Plus seat is how easy it is to get in and out of the cabin. So this is the first time a Kodiak 100 seat has not required any additional tools. It's just 2 quarter turns down here, and then you put it right in the seat tracks. And like I said, it can go fore aft, so it's a much simpler seat to get in and out. But it is always in the upright position. So if you don't need the seat, you can't really store it anywhere in the airplane. You have to store it in your hangar. So now we're in the cockpit of a Kodiak 100 Series 3. Now there are not a lot of changes between the Kodiak 100 Series 2 and Series 3. The G1000 NXI came out with Series 2. There have been some updates to the audio panels. There's been some updates to the behind the scenes LRUs, but for the most part, what you'll see out here is going to be the same in the Kodiak 100 between Series 2 and Series 3 with a few minor changes. One of the big ones was the autopilot head moved up to the top of the MFD. The level switch moved up here as well. This mimics the Kodiak 900, and so it's conformity between the Kodiak 100, Kodiak 900. This changed in 2023. If you're interested in the specific serial numbers where some of these things changed, please reach out. Our contact details are at the end. Be happy to walk you through some of the specific serial number changes. A few other things that changed is the USB ports were updated at the same time as the autopilot head, and they now come standard with a USB-C, which is a higher power. It can keep an iPad or laptop charged, and then the older style USB ports. So one of the nice things when they moved the autopilot head up to the top of the MFD was it gives you a lot of real estate down below the MFD. So for governmental special missions operators, there's a lot of room here to add additional radios, additional avionics, or for a private owner, it's a nice space now to add iPads and other things. So you just get a little bit more usable real estate in your cockpit. Additionally, you've still got the glove boxes that came out with Series 2, and pretty much everything else is still the same. They've changed the timing gauges a little bit, but besides the major change of the Garmin autopilot changing and the USB ports changing, not a lot else up here has changed. All right, so we're here in front of this 2023 version of a Kodiak 100 Series 3. And as I've mentioned, there's a few interchanges between Series 3s, depending on the year model. One of the big changes is this all new crew door, along with the magnetic crew door stay. So talking about the crew door itself, this was brought down from the Kodiak 900. So this has got the new armrest on the crew door. It's also got the new style crew door window. One of the issues, if you will, with the Kodiak 100s over the years has been some minor cracking along the crew door windows. So this new window is more of a floating style window, so the crew door window actually has movement to expand and contract. And then these magnetic crew door stays are pretty cool. As you can see, all I have to do is push the door up and it stays there. Again, a lot of people ask, well, why even have this door be able to swing 180? And the reason is for the float plane application. So when you put this airplane on floats, your walkway is right here. So if the door only swung out right here, it would really impede where you can go when your airplane's on floats. So having this magnetic option is super convenient, both on wheels and floats. And this also is an aftermarket option, so you can add the magnetic crew door stay to an older style Kodiak with a fairly inexpensive retrofit. Thanks everybody for watching this overview of the Kodiak 100 Series 3. My name is Mark Brown. I have over 8,000 hours flying Kodiaks, and I've worked with them the last 12 years. We started 11 Aviation to be the Kodiak specialists in the pre-owned space. So if you guys are interested in buying or selling a Kodiak 100, or having one managed, or learning to fly them with training, we offer all those services, white glove concierge style service. I'd love to tell you more about it. If you have any questions, my contact details are at the end. Until next time, thank you for watching.